Welcome to the Taking a Breath podcast with Parker Mays.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the Taking a Breath podcast. I'm Parker, and this week joining me is Emmanuel Okosisi. He's a servant leader and entrepreneur and is currently pursuing his MBA at California State University at Los Angeles. Emmanuel is the co-founder of Evolution of Leadership, a startup whose mission is to design the next generation of leaders. During his time in undergrad, Emmanuel was a founding father and president of Phi Kappa Theta Fraternity, among other student organizations, which led to his founding of Evolution of Leadership. With all the conversations I've been having in my circles and with my friends around education, personal growth, and especially in the student space, Emmanuel felt like this perfect combination where we can really have a relevant discussion for both taking a breath and also the people in the community. So Emmanuel, would love to jump in with just a quick introduction from you, and then we can dive into some questions.
Awesome. Pleasure to be here, Parker. Thank you for the quick introduction. Like you mentioned, I'm co-founder of Evolution of Leadership, and I'm also an MBA student. My personal start in leadership initially began when I moved over to the US when I was about 11 years old. And prior to coming to the US, I did have problem with communicating and public speaking, even talking one-on-one with people at regular times. And moving over to the US made it even worse because then I had an accent to deal with and people could even understand me way less. It had been something that had been haunting me until I got to my college years. It used to be my strength, but I was able to turn it into, it used to be my weakness, but I was able to effectively turn it into a strength by going into leadership positions. The first position I had, I believe I was a philanthropist in this student organization called Prayer Society, where I was basically in charge of giving out volunteer hours to the students. As I gained more experience, I climbed the leadership ladder and became better with influence and with my communication. And that really helped me out. Leadership really helped me out to increase my communication and effectively get over my weakness and turn it into a strength.
I love that. And I feel like, so it's interesting because it's a unique perspective. You get into college, and what was that transition like into these leadership roles with your fraternity? I know you met your co-founder both there in college. So what was that transition like to actually some team positions as a student?
Yes, it's funny. My co-founder, we have actually been in about 3 student organizations together during our undergrad. So we have that close trust with each other. I believe he is actually one of the main reasons why I decided to be part of a fraternity. I wasn't going to be in a fraternity. I saw it as something negative until I realized that Phi Kappa Theta fraternity is something that could be positive if we were the ones to mold it. And that's why I decided to join him as a founding father of Phi Kappa Theta. What we basically did was we provided social development, fraternal development, spiritual, intellectual, and I'm forgetting one more. But I'm saying that in essence to let you know that we are a well-rounded fraternity. The reason why we went about to create it is because we saw that we could leave a legacy of something better than what people perceived it to be. When people think about fraternities, they usually think about some guys getting drunk, but we were able to change that at least in our school space. And we were able to take something that was looked at as negative into a positive. And that relationship with Angel eventually evolved to us becoming business partners.
I love it. And I love to see that that intentionality there, right? You guys took this idea of, just a fraternity in general, which can have, negative and positive, just different implications. And you guys said, we're going to really intentionally make it a space where people can improve their servant leadership. They can improve on their personal growth and basically connect with a network of people who all has that same intention as they do. And I love the idea that you mentioned of legacy as well. Like you guys building something that means something, right? That's really where my heart is at as well, is building something that's going to have an impact, that's going to make a difference in people's lives. So I love that. Let's get into evolution of leadership a little bit. So you guys, was this something that you started while in undergrad, or now that you guys are pursuing the master's? When was the vision for that when did that start taking place?
Evolution of leadership is actually something that started with Angel, my co-founder. He was approached by someone, a mentor, who asked him, have you ever thought about starting your own business? He said, yes, I have. However, I don't have the right resources. Angel felt like he didn't have the right resources around him. And the guy told him, how do you know that you cannot already do that? And what he told him was that he was already running a business, essentially. As president of Peace Club, he was running a business, and that inspired Angel to go for his dream to start Evolution of Leadership. Evolution of Leadership was started because there was a lack of leadership opportunities in the underserved. And when there are those opportunities, coaches and leaders tend to charge thousands of dollars for conferences, certifications, and trainings. And when Angel began it, he was doing it off and on, and it wasn't really consistent. However, he decided to get a little more serious about it during COVID last year. He brought me on as a co-founder, and together we eventually built an entire team that we have today, and we effectively launched last month, January. And it's really awesome to have witnessed the beginning stages and to have came in to help with the growth of Evolution Leadership. And right now, what we are doing is we have established our first chapter. We plan to build many more chapters in many different schools, starting with the HBCUs, the CSUs, UCs, and eventually move towards many colleges and universities all over the United States.
I love that vision. I wanted to touch back on something before diving into that you said there, that Angel had felt like he didn't have the right resources in place, right, to start this idea or move on it. And it's something that I'm super passionate about. I hear that a lot, especially like students, right? We can always feel like, oh, it's not the right timing, or it's not I don't have the money to do it. I don't have the idea all the way built out. And I think that it's so important what he did and what you guys are doing, which is, if you don't have the right resources at the time, how can we actually take steps towards making it happen and getting the right resources? And so I'm super passionate about exactly where you're at. And I feel like I have a lot to learn there in the space of some of the things that I'm working on right now. One thing is, you said that you guys are really passionate about creating opportunities and creating accessibility for people who either couldn't afford it or wouldn't otherwise have opportunity for it. Tell me a little bit about that mission and how you guys are kind of working on achieving that.
Yeah, our mission is definitely, like you did mention earlier, to design the next generation of leaders, because we believe the next generation is the future. And essentially what we're doing, one of the free services that we do, whether you're a member or not member, you can get this free service, is we're hosting free leadership events every single week where we bring on entrepreneurs and leaders from different industries. Our audience, the underserved, they don't usually get the chance to meet these people in their daily lives. So we're bringing these people to them. And in the future, we're looking to get into a B2B business model also, so that we can effectively coach businesses in the underserved communities and also get some funds coming that way. And we are currently in discussion with that with some companies.
Awesome. So back to the idea of your mission to, design the next generation of leaders. What does that kind of look like for you guys? What are the main things that you guys are teaching your members? I know you mentioned the leadership mindset, the organizational mindset. What are some of the things involved that you guys are really working to teach the students that are part of the organization?
Yeah, in addition to those things, another thing that we offer is conflict resolution training.
Hmm.
So Angel actually has his undergrad in conflict resolution, negotiation, conflict resolution, and peace building, and he's certified by DARPA. So he can actually work as a mediator in courts if he wanted to. So that's a training that we have been providing. And yeah, that combined with the rest of the other trainings is definitely helping them build and develop. And currently, we are also working on other trainings we're going to be providing to them.
That's fantastic. In terms of scaling, do you feel like right now, as you're starting to look at other schools, what does that process look like for you guys to be able to scale it, reach out to other schools, and build the clubs within other schools in the area?
I'm glad that you asked. So we can talk about scaling on two fronts. So we can talk about scaling in one chapter, and we can talk about scaling when reaching out to other chapters. So something that we have had a proven model of from Angel and I's fraternal experiences is I remember in the fraternity when we were originally going to begin, I believe it was about 15 of us. But once we got to the last step, literally almost everyone dropped. It was 7 left. And we enforced a law. We said each person in the organization has to recruit one member. And literally after the next year, we doubled. The next year after that, we doubled to 20 something. And after that, we doubled again. And that's something we are actually putting in the student organization to help them with their networking skills and their recruitment skills, because that is very important when you want to start a company or when you want to be a leader of an organization. You need to know how to recruit people into your organization. You need to know how to basically sell if you need to. And we are teaching them those strategies that we already know through our recruitment training. And each person um, has to also bring on one other person into the organization every semester. And currently they are working on that process and they have a lot of interests that are going to be coming on after the semester. And I believe we're doing pretty good on that. In terms of getting into other schools, we are actually um, communicating with multiple CSUs, community colleges, and UCs. We are currently developing those relationships with them, as well as molding this first chapter. So what we don't want to immediately move on to those other schools as of now. What we want to do is to make this first chapter as good as we can, because this will be the model and the template for our future chapters. So once we are done with the establishment of this first chapter and making sure everything is great, then we'll copy and paste that system and move into the other schools. And we can do this many different ways. First of all, we can reach out to the presidents of each of the different schools. We can also reach out to the faculty. You can literally go to the website of the schools and you can find the faculty, contact them, tell them, oh, we already have this student organization. Look, it's doing really well. We would like to present to your students. Here is out. And another thing too is we're also working on getting into their newsletters. And that would be really good in terms of publicizing ourselves before we go into those schools already.
Yeah, I am really interested to see over the next year or two as you guys start to scale the idea how that continues to develop, right? Like with that initial model and template, when you put that into a different university, what happens? You know, like are
Mhm.
people just super on board with it? Are there things that adjust based on who's leading it, who are the students in it? So I'm really curious about that. Obviously, right now, that's down the road. But one thing that I wanted to ask you, you mentioned in the scaling of one chapter or of your fraternity that you had this recruitment process where everyone brought in someone else. What was the culture like to be able to encourage people to bring in someone? Was there things that you guys were doing that made people so invested that they said, yes, like this person, like, you need to come, like check this out? What was that? Was there any sort of like secrets or keys to bringing new people in?
Let me see. I will say two things. The first one is FOMO, fear of missing out. And the second thing is personalization. You need to make things personal. You don't just need to say, hey, come into my organization. First of all, you have to talk to someone as if they are already your friend. You have to, I'll give you an example in a scenario. Let's say your organization has an event in 2 weeks, right? And you would like to recruit this person you just met today into your organization. You can say, hey, and let's say that the event is a networking event with a speaker who is in the healthcare field. And you say, let's say the person's major is in healthcare. Something you can say is, hey, I know that you're interested in healthcare. Would you be interested in learning more about what this person has to say? You invite them to the event. You don't necessarily tell them, oh, this is my organization. You just invite them to the event as your friend. And then when they come to the event, you can be talking with them. I feel like a mistake that some people do make is when they invite the person to an event, they either don't really talk with them that much, or they get too much into the conversation. Just go with the flow of things. And when the person comes, you keep talking to them, you introduce the person to your organization members. You tell them, hey, this is my friend Joel, this is my friend Jeremy, this is my friend Michael. And as things go on, then you eventually tell the person, hey, they're also part of this organization I'm part of, and it's a healthcare organization. Would you like to learn more? And they're like, sure. And what you can do is you invite them to an informational where you will be able to tell them all the benefits of the organization and all the requirements. And if they're willing, they will join. Not everyone is going to be a recruit. Not everyone is going to join your organization. But one motto that we always have is everyone is a recruit until proven otherwise. Everyone is a recruit until they say no. So if you don't hear no from them, is a maybe, and a maybe is a potential yes. So just keep inviting them to things, more preferably things that are more laid back. Like if you have a bonfire and you have an event with a speaker, don't invite them to the event with the speaker. Invite them to the bonfire first,
Yeah, just creating
because
a
that is more relaxing and they will get more sociable with you in that instance.
100%. So a couple things there. One, that idea of like FOMO, like creating an experience that people don't want to miss out on,
Mhm.
is a cool idea. Like I hadn't thought about it in terms of what you're talking about, which is like a club experience. I always think about it in terms of, hey, people party because they don't want to miss out on something exciting that happens, right? But you're saying like actually the opposite, like let's create constructive experiences that people are afraid to miss out on, like something that's around leadership and personal growth. So that's interesting. And then I feel like that idea of actually the personal connection is really crucial. One thing that you didn't mention there that might play into it, I'm not sure if it's in your experience, but this is something that I've seen as well, is the idea of really filling that gap, right? Like finding, you mentioned everybody's a recruit until they're not, which I agree with, right? Like I think that, anyone has the potential to be interested in this, everything like that. A lot of times what I've found is like the people who you can really find that they connect with the problem that you're trying to solve are those most relevant, like anybody could be a candidate. So I love that idea. And I think that when we can really find that personal connection where we see, hey, this is something you're actually going to benefit from. Whether it's, you mentioned the bonfire versus the guest speaker. I think that's super relevant. If I have a friend who's super laid back, like, dude, hey, come to the bonfire, let's hang out. But if you have a friend like me who's like, hey, let's grind, let's make this happen, then potentially, like, knowing that person's like the awareness to know that they might benefit more actually from the speaker and might feel like you're valuing their time more by giving them that invite could be a cool way to add value as well. So I think there's definitely a lot to that, but I appreciate you sharing. One question that I had was around team culture, or like the culture both within the fraternity and now within the club. Do you guys feel like there's anything that you're doing to, when it comes to like adapting and pushing everybody to grow together and succeed?
Yeah, definitely. It is there. I would say that we do hold each other accountable to things. And something I have seen in student organizations is most of the time, the president is the only one who takes on the load of the work. And what we have essentially done is we make sure that everyone is handling their roles, everyone is holding each other accountable. And that really does help a lot. And I would also like to mention something else in terms of recruitment. Something I've noticed is most would join just because their friend is in that organization. So it's just like a trust thing. They already have that trust. So they're more likely to come on board with them.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Emmanuel, hey, I really appreciate the time. Where can people find you if they want to hear more about evolution of leadership and what you're doing?
Oh, I'm on LinkedIn, and you can also email me at okosisiemmanuel@gmail.com. I'm probably going to respond within a few minutes to a few hours. Yeah, just reach out to me and we can discuss more.
Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time again. Appreciate you being a part of the project. I love what you guys are doing in the leadership space. I feel like there's a lot of potential with this club idea, and I wish you continued success. For anyone who's listening, would love for you to follow us at Taking a Breath Podcast on Instagram. Make sure you leave a rating, subscribe, and we'll see you again next week for another episode.
Thanks for listening to the Taking a Breath podcast with Parker Mays.